Hello and welcome to a brief introduction on transcription. And so the first thing that's going to happen with transcription is something called the initiation phase. And the initiation phase is basically we're going to take RNA polymerase and it is going to go bind to the promoter region. More specifically on the promoter region, it's going to go around the -35 box. We call it the -35 box because it is around 35 base pairs away from the section of DNA that RNA polymerase wants to transcribe. And so that is why it's called the -35 box. And so RNA polymerase is just going to stay there. It's not going to do anything until these transcription factors come along and basically prompt RNA polymerase to be like, hey, start transcribing, start you doing your job. And so RNA is going to start going along on this DNA strand until it finds its start region. And so that is called the TATA box. Once it finds this TATA box, that's basically going to be the starting gun. It's going to tell RNA polymerase that this is the region that you actually want to start transcribing. And so once it hits that TATA box, we move from the initiation stage into the elongation stage. And that is going to be when RNA polymerase is going to go along this template strand, and it is going to go along and it is going to make complementary mRNA. It is going to go and make a complementary mRNA strand. And it's going to keep making the strand, making the strand, making the strand until it hits the a terminator sequence. And so the terminator sequence is going to basically say, hey, RNA polymerase, stop transcribing, you've done your job. And so once we hit that, we're going to enter the termination stage. And so that RNA polymerase is going to go away, and then we are going to be left with our mRNA. And so this mRNA, it isn't what we are going to end up with. We need to change some things up. Basically what this mRNA is made up of, it is made up of two components. It is made up of introns and exons. The introns are the genetic data that we basically don't need. It's basically just junk data. And so we want to get rid of the junk data, and we want to be left with only these exons, these pink sections where we're going to take this genetic data and we're actually going to use it to make proteins. And so the introns, which is the purple, they're just junk and we need to get rid of them. How we do that is we splice them. We're going to use spliceosomes, and they're basically going to come in and snip away the sections of mRNA that we do not want, and it is going to splice the mRNA away, splice the introns away, and then splice the exons together to make a strand of mRNA. And then we are almost done, but not completely. We can't send the mRNA into the cell or the cytosol just yet because it doesn't have any protection. It doesn't have any protection from the outside elements that might harm it. And so we need to give it some protection. And so how we do that is we are going to give it a 5' cap. And so where we put this 5' cap is on the 5' end. Now you may think that since RNA polymerase transcribes from 3' to 5', that the 5' end is going to be on this side. But remember that the mRNA that is transcribed is complementary. It is going to be anti-parallel to the template strand up here. So while the template strand is going from 3' to 5' over here, the complementary strand is actually 5' to 3'. It is the opposite. And so the 5' end is going to go on this left side right over here. And then we want to give it some protection on the back, and on the back we are going to throw in a 3' poly A tail. And so we're going to add a poly A tail on the 3' end, and then once we do that, the mRNA is good and ready to go out into the cell, brave the harsh weather, and go and make some proteins. It's going to go and make some proteins. And that is going to be a brief introduction on transcription.